woodlands that we have. And those areas, you know, create that feel that is Maple Grove.
Essentially what we had in 1983 was a blank sheet. And so we were able to create, you know, what we wanted.
It was big. I mean, you could never imagine, I mean, all the piles and piles that kind of, well, they were like mini mountains.
If you choose to stay healthy by exercising, there's everything here that you need to do.
I saw developers buying off farms and starting to build, at which point the pressure was on the school district to create something.
Today, there really is nothing you need to leave Maple Grove to accomplish.
It was a lot of area with a lot of trees. Most prominent tree was maple, and used for many different things, including making maple syrup, which became a tradition for a lot of the local farmers if they had maple trees.
We were a township back in the 1850s when this area was founded by Pierre Bottineau and then Louis Gervais. Pierre played a critical role, maybe more so than Louis. He played a critical role as an early settler, establishing, you know, this whole area. From the 1850s to 1954, we were a township. 54, we became a village, and then in 1974, we became a city.
My great-grandfather came over here to America at age 19. He homesteaded in 1856 and 80 acres and bought another 80 for $1 an acre. Population in 1880 was only like 1,100. As the land opened up, people came from the east usually and moved into the area, a farming area. So people who were interested in farming settled here. Farming was a few cattle, a few probably hogs, chickens, whatever was needed. You were pretty self-supporting in your food. There were Indians. There have been Indian mounds found. My great-grandfather, who was one of the earlier homesteaders, talked about Indians coming to his door asking for food.
The ox cart trail was first made even before Bottineau.
You say it's the trails that were made by the Indians to start with that traveled. You know, they brought furs down from Canada and they follow those trails.
And Territorial Road is a part of that ox cart trail.
Territorial Road was the original 152, which went from Minneapolis all the way up into Dakota, you know, through St. Cloud.
It's where the first town was in Maple Grove, and that would have been right on that trail. This was a fur trading post at that time, and also lumber.
There were no buildings, so they needed something to make those buildings, and that's when sawmills came in.
The sawmills took off because Maple Grove had a lot of trees, and so lumber was a big business. And again, the dairy operations were a big business, and the creameries.
So small creameries sprang up so that the farmer could take his milk, which was probably separated at home. The cream, or the better quality of the milk, went to the creameries. Some made cheese, some made butter. Maple Grove is 6 miles by 6 miles, 36 square miles. So you didn't travel very far because you didn't have the transportation you have now. They stayed kind of in their own little communities and established their own little communities together.
There were a couple of churches. There was the cheese factory. There was the blacksmith shop, the grocery store.
As the city grew, they grew around the lakes There's Eagle Lake, Fish Lake, Rice Lake, Weaver Lake, Cedar Lake. There were some resorts, particularly on Eagle Lake.
There was a Chubb's resort that was on Eagle Lake, and they had a dance hall, and they rented boats. And there was Ryan's Resort, which was on Bass Lake.
A lot of canoeing and just, small boats, recreational, relaxation.
You could rent a boat over on Weaver Lake, and that was great. I mean, we would go for boat rides over there, and I can't remember, it'd be like 50 cents, but you could have that boat all day.
Weaver Lake, you could go. Job's had a place you could go there. Some of them had just where you could go down to the beach and go swimming. Some of them put a tin can on a post, and you'd put a 50 cents in or 25 cents or something in there to go down there.
The Bradenburg store was visited by everyone, and they had a little bit of everything.
It was built in the 1930s, early 30s, and a general store.
It was a family operation. The mother and the dad ran it, and they just had a tremendous business.
It was a gathering place for those that wanted to go and play cards.
I know it was a popular place to get an ice cream cone. You'd always depend on that.
The ice cream is what sold all the kids. And the bus driver would stop. That was a special treat for them. And he paid for it out of his own pocket, which was so nice. In the 50s, churches were necessary.
Churches were a big community thing. That's how they got to know each other and work together. There were several small churches in Maple Grove at one time.
When we were raising the kids, it wasn't just the immediate neighborhood, but because of your church affiliation, you were connected with others from here or there, and it was great.
You went to church to do something socially because there really wasn't any other place. For Halloween, we would have been bobbing apples. Christmas time, you had your programs, and your children were all involved in that. I mean, you met so many people and so many good people.
It's an extension of your family at home is what it is.
It took more than Maple Grove people to make Maple Grove. If you'd have put a fence around Maple Grove, it'd have stayed just like it was. Some people from the farm moved in and started businesses. People in Brooklyn Park had a filling station in Osseo, and that was a testament. There were people that moved in from Maple Grove and started a blacksmith shop. The town drew the people, and of course the people out in the country needed that town. They needed it for supplies. Maple Grove, it's because of the amount of development that was in Osseo that brought the attention, because it had everything there from the post office to the grocery store to the hardware store. When I was young, if you told somebody that you lived in Maple Grove, it was too far to go. They've heard of Osseo, but Maple Grove, that was a long ways away.
There were one-room schools located throughout the area. Each were called district at that time.
There was the Birchville School, that was out a little further in Corcoran. So that was also a one-room school, and that's a historic school.
They usually had to walk to school, or they took a horse to school. Books were minimal availability. As it became more settled, of course, then it went into bigger schools, and the Osseo School District brought in all these one-room schools, which was in the 1950s.
I saw developers buying off farms and starting to build, at which point the pressure was on the school district to create something. The superintendent really wanted to move the Educational Service Center out of Osseo Senior High. He wanted to build a nice new building for it. And we said, first you build us a school in Maple Grove, then we'll help you build your building. 1970 was the very first one. That was Cedar Island. The Elba Creek and Rice Lake were built in 1980, and then we didn't build another elementary till 1988, and that was Fernbrook. And then in 1990, we built Maple Grove Middle School. It was one of their long-range pieces of property. You know, they looked around, they wanted something fairly center, easy to get to. Hemlock Lane was a good thoroughfare to go up and down on, and the final one in Maple Grove that we built was Maple Grove Senior High in 1996. Superintendent Norstead had a philosophy of the lights are always on, and that's what he wanted in the schools. So not only did we open them for the daytime, but we fully encouraged the community to use them all the way through the evening, and they still are used that way today.
It just doesn't make sense not to have those joint partnerships with the schools. Every school in Maple Grove is a park. Even the high school is a park. We were able to work with the superintendent and the school board back when Maple Grove High School was built to design the park, the outside of that to be friendly to the weekend and the evening users also, not just for the PE classes and whatnot. So every school is a joint powers agreement.
I think we have a wonderful school system.
The district had a very good reputation, and this drew people. The people that moved in because there were schools. The taxpayers of Maple Grove can be very proud of the school district and its careful planning.
It was big. I mean, you could never imagine, I mean, all the piles and piles that kind of, well, they were like mini mountains.
If you talk to anybody, not even in this area, but in this area and all over the, Hennepin County, they'd say, "Oh, you're talking about that moonscape over there?"
The gravel pits, the ones that were close to town, there were called Getchell's Hills, which was right on the edge of Osseo. It was a place where you could take your sled or toboggan and walk out of Osseo to the hills and go sledding.
As you drove back toward the pits, the best thing to do was to get to the top of what was called Vol's Hill, and on a bike, and it wasn't a 3-speed, 5-speed or anything, but then being able to get all the way back home, which was at least a half mile, and get across County Road 18 with no traffic without having to stop. So, and that was our big adventure for a lot.
You could go out there if you wanted to and get some gravel and not worry about whether it was owned by anybody or not. You could pull in there and take some gravel. It wasn't a big thing.
The land was really untillable. It was unfarmable because it was too gravelly.
There's people that were out in the gravel pits here that were on a rock out there trying to grow some vegetables and some radishes, and they had to buy that property because they didn't have enough money to buy this good dirt that you could grow potatoes on and do well, so they'll be out there. Pretty soon they find out they're on a gold mine.
We also had information from the geology at the state of Minnesota. So we knew that this area had a lot of gravel. It was a rolling property, you had to do something sooner or later, so let's get the gravel out and do that.
Gravel mining area has been here for a long, long time.
We've essentially had 2 family-owned businesses that have essentially owned the gravel pits forever.
There was 2,000 acres, and we could lay it right in here, and this is as big or bigger than the whole international airport.
Maple Grove has always been in gravel, and I know it was important to the community, it was important to the cities around us, and gradually it employed a lot of people.
It meant a lot to the metro. We did paving all over the western area, the downtown Minneapolis, and all over the place. The significance of this gravel here and the one down in Bloomington was that it's right there and had good transportation. The hardest rock is the granites up in St. Cloud and stuff like that, but it's too hard, it's too cumbersome to try to get at it. With this stuff here, it's as hard as that, but it's smaller, so we can deal with it and crush it up much faster. We think we have enough sand and gravel at least for another 25 years.
I don't know if it came quicker than we thought, but we knew it was coming.
It didn't happen overnight, it was gradual.
You saw a house pop up here and there, and then after that, it was the developers coming in.
It's just going to happen. I don't know how you stop it happening and being in the middle of a city and still have a farm.
Farming was going out. My brother had left for farming in another area of the state.
There was a great opposition out here to development at the time. Nobody wanted new housing projects in their neighborhood.
Watching our woods being taken down for townhomes going in there. That was my home. It was special to us, and we grew up there. It's hard to see. It's hard to see.
We had to deal with the Metropolitan Council and that MUSA line, and that really predicted how far we could develop out and when we could develop out. Eventually, the Met Council no longer used the MUSA line as a reason for where do you allow development in Maple Grove. They finally let that up to the city.
When water and sewer came in, everything popped.
Without the sewer system, you couldn't have the more dense housing. You could have the large 5, 10, 20 acre developments with a house with a septic system, but you couldn't have neighborhoods where everyone had a septic system because that just doesn't work.
Our water table is great in Maple Grove, but it's the sewage that's going to be a problem.
That became sort of the critical factor in how the city was going to develop.
Back in the 70s, we got serious about putting together a land use plan. Essentially, what do we want to be when we grow up in Maple Grove?
There wasn't a lot here. There was a freeway that went through town. On the north side of the freeway, 694, there was a gravel mining area. There really wasn't a shopping area at that point in time. There wasn't much besides gravel, a Super America, a grocery store, and that was really about it. I think that with the freeways coming here in the early 70s, that really started the growth of the community. I think in the late 70s, you saw the growth just south of 694, around where the middle school is today. Those homes came in at that time, and certainly that wouldn't have happened out here if the freeway wasn't open.
It was wonderful when that came through because people were beginning to work downtown.
It certainly opened up Maple Grove to Minneapolis.
Maple Grove is the hub of those people coming from the northwest or going to the northwest, out of the metropolitan area. That's the road you're going to go. Because of that, that has really, caused us to become the suburb that we are today. The city of Maple Grove actually put aside land area for 610. So when the housing developments are coming through in the early 70s, the right-of-way for 610 was accepted from any building, and so that's where 610 is today through northern Maple Grove. On the east end is all the road was put aside back in the early 70s.
Once that transportation link opened and that sign went up that said Maple Grove, boom. I call the city officials back in the 60s and 70s pioneers. They wanted to see progressive development, orderly development.
I think every mayor we've had, I think they all had a part in the advancement of Maple Grove, the growth of it.
Dick Reimer was our first mayor, and he was also a developer here in town, and there are some projects, there's some roads that are named after him. So he was very instrumental in some of the first initial buildings off the freeway at the Weaver Lake exit.
We've had very good management in Maple Grove as far as development goes.
The original downtown of Maple Grove was expected to be where Zachary Square is, because at that time 610 was going to come across. And the developer of Zachary Square, he was convinced that that is where downtown Maple Grove is going to be. Well, 610 didn't happen. And so we started to refocus. And we started to take another look at where downtown Maple Grove is now. And we took a look at, the transportation system. We took a look at the lakes, and then we refocused our attention more into, what you see now in Maple Grove.
So you got to have something to draw people, and that's what Maple Grove, I think, has today.
We have a wonderful set of trails and parks in our city that people can enjoy throughout the year.
If you choose to stay healthy by exercising, there's everything here that you need to do it with.
The lovely park system, it's beautiful. And the walking and bike paths that can interconnect with other cities. You can get on a bike and go all the way to the Coon Rapids Dam.
The number one thing that you always hear from the realtors that say that people want to come to Maple Grove, it's for the trail system. The Neighborhood Park Initiative started back in the 70s with a comprehensive plan, set the stage for the neighborhood parks, for the trail system, and for all of the play fields, and then the two community parks that we have.
We hear about it a lot, how great our parks and our trails are. I think that we put a lot of focus on it from the city's side, knowing that people enjoy in this state the ability to bike, they enjoy the ability to walk, they want to walk on trails through natural environmental areas.
The regional parks then was just fantastic for us because we were a young community. We were acquiring land, we were trying to build our community parks. Cliff French, which French Park in Plymouth, was the superintendent of Three Rivers at the time, was looking for land to purchase because Maple Grove had a lot of it back then. And the councils and the leaders of the city at that time were very open to having acquisition of lands through Three Rivers Park District.
We have a tremendous park in Elm Creek Park Reserve. It provides a lot of additional services for our community, the cross-country skiing, the tubing in the wintertime, all the summer activities, the disc golf, all these type of outdoor activities are available right in our community.
The regional trail that comes through from Plymouth all the way to the Coon Rapids Dam comes through the heart of Maple Grove. We were able to connect all of our trails to that main artery, so it was very seamless. You've got 80 miles of city park trails that are off in the woods. You got another 250 miles of street trails, and then you've got 15 to 18 of Three Rivers going right through the heart. So trails every place.
It's a great benefit to us, and we hear about that when you go to other conferences and people talk about how many acres of parks they have in their city, and it's like, well, we have 400 acres of parks, and I can say, well, we have 5 to 10,000.
It's just unbelievable to deal with the lakes, number one, and then all of the woodlands that we have. And those areas, create that feel that is Maple Grove.
Maple Grove was willing to work with us, and we were willing to work with them, and we encouraged them to have classes in our buildings, and they allowed us to use parkland for our playgrounds. It was a very beneficial, mutual partnership there.
It just doesn't make sense not to have those joint partnerships with the schools. Every school in Maple Grove is a park. All of the athletic type fields are at school sites.
In the growth and building of our community, we've done it in a way to make sure that we've worked together with the school district to make sure that we're providing opportunities for our students, for our children. So some of the additional athletic facilities that we've worked together with the school district on, I'm very proud of.
The chair of the park board at that time, his name was Ron Dindorf, he said, Terry, we're going to hire you, and your number one goal is to develop something unique in the gravel mining area. And we were able to work with Gary Sauer to get a hold of the community center site in the early 90s and put everything in one location, centralized, so everybody comes together there. And it's close to 1 million people a year that use that facility. Mayor Steffenson and Irene Koski we talked about something unique to do as far as the community park and the gravel pit. So we wanted to do something unique, something different, and so we just started that nurturing at that time. And then as we went along, we had a committee of the park board look at very unique features. If you come to the Central Park, everything is unique about this.
You know, the playground area is a sort of very creative new concept playground that people come from around town to go to.
We have basketball courts in all of our parks, but we don't have a shooting range like at Central Park. The spray pad is unique. The skating trail was something that I was a big ice guy, so I was pushing that the whole time to get that. That is the unique in the whole country. There's only 2 of them. And then we finished with this beautiful playground, which is very unique compared to all of our other smaller neighborhood park playgrounds.
Some of those real sort of intensive, expensive projects, I think, have turned out wonderful for the city, have become great amenities for the city, and I'm very proud that we've done it.
I think they've done a very good job in Maple Grove in development.
Wonderful development, very carefully planned.
It didn't just happen. There was a lot of planning, and a lot of work has gone into the city. And I think they've done a tremendous job because it's not only beautiful, but it's accommodating.
The development that you see in Maple Grove now, most of that has come starting in the 80s. We had a lot of fun back then just formulating a plan, because essentially what we had in 1983 was a blank sheet. And so we were able to create, what we wanted.
During that time, our city staff, including our economic development director, Al Madsen, who became our city administrator in the 90s, really had a vision for what could Maple Grove become. The first real sort of business development that was new to our city was the Wedgwood Commerce Center Business Park. And there was one very large office building that was built there for a single user back in the early 90s. That really started opening up the business community for our city. It brought in some medical technical businesses.
When SciMed developed their headquarters, that really was very, very critical.
Became the new big development off of Weaver Lake Road, and then it became Boston Scientific. So those type of original business developments, and especially in the medical technical area, really spun into what we have today.
Upshur Smith, which is along 494, that was another, I think, top quality project for us.
What could the gravel pits become? Because that was really the foundation of what Maple Grove is today, is the vision that we had back then for how do we change these gravel pits from operating gravel pits into a thriving community.
The operators of the gravel mining area, Charlie McCrossan, Gary Sauer, we're very fortunate to have those two as the main owners of the gravel mining area, because they had a vision.
It's hard to overstate how important it was to have both of them buying into what our concept was, and in many ways sometimes the concepts were theirs. And that really was helpful, because when projects or developers came to them that said, well, we'd like you to look at selling us your land for this project, the gravel owners said, no, that's not our vision, that's not what we're interested in. And because of it, it allowed the city to take an easier path for development.
Al came to me and said, Gary, the city fathers would like to meet with you on Saturday. They just wanted to know what I thought about it. I finally told the city, I said, I think it'll be important to have a big major contractor involved in this thing.
When I came on the board in 1997 as a city council member, we had a concept for that downtown area, but really nothing had been brought forward, nothing was going forward at the time.
The late 1990s is when things really got serious about developing downtown Maple Grove. The creation of a main street, that was critical for us. Opus at that time felt that a main street in a suburb will never work. We kept pushing for a main street.
I have to admit I had some skepticism of trying to recreate a Main Street in America today. Is that going to work? How is that going to survive the test of time?
That's one of the nice things about some of the development that's happened in Arbor Lakes. It's within walking distance to a lot of different shopping and dining opportunities.
If you were going to eat in every restaurant that is in Maple Grove, you'd have to be out 7 days a week and months at a time, because we certainly have the eateries, and they're good. There seems to be something for everyone.
When we first started to work with Opus, and they came, with this concept, is that it's outdoor, It's not a 2 or 3 level 72 degree, 75 degree year-round temperature.
We flew around different places, just to see what they were doing and stuff. And that's when we came up with the plans kind of that we had to build a downtown and an open thing.
I had apprehension, a lot of us had apprehension. Oh, this is Minnesota. Everybody's, shopping in Southdale and Ridgedale, and 12 months a year, it's comfortable. Here now you gotta park and go inside and come back out and go to the, inside to the next one.
Why will people come to an open-air mall in February? What's the allure of an open-air mall in Minnesota in the dead of winter?
Over time, we came to agree that this is a good concept, and it's a concept that has worked.
And the open-air mall was the first open-air mall north of the Mason-Dixie line. I mean, it was a new concept that they really bought into and has really worked very, very well in our city.
We were looking at trying to less reliance on cars to take you to your shopping store and do more walking.
It was important to do something like that because it's different. Nobody else has it.
Next 30 years, certainly some of the stuff is going to happen in the gravel mining area. You're going to start to see more of that land, finally opening up.
You're going to really see an explosion of growth in the northwest part of our city. That's really where the growth will be focused over the next 15, 20 years. We need to plan for the continued growth of the residential and the gravel mining area as well, and make sure that we have a sort of thriving urban metropolis. It's walkable, it's bikeable, it's drivable, and it's easy access to all of our sort of downtown businesses so that they can continue to thrive as well.
Plans take a while. When you're trying to orderly create a city, develop a city, it takes a long time to lay out the plan. But you want to make sure that the plan you lay out is good for the long term. So we want to make sure that whatever took place, residential, commercial, industrial, was good for the long term of the city. And I think we've accomplished that.